Let's get started. Hey, everybody. My name is Aaron Shea, and welcome to Habitat Now. It is an honor to have you join me. We skipped last weekend due to catch up on projects and returning back from Florida and getting organized from the Sarasota Glass Coast Weekend and Glass Art Fair. And we're back in business, and we have Chris Day joining us today. Many of you may have seen him speak briefly yesterday for the ACG Fired Up talk. It was great to get a glimpse into his world, but I really wanted to give him a space to shine as we invited him to be part of March NGG 2024. It is a lot of fun to learn about a lot of the artists working today with the medium of glass. And we were in a conversation earlier with Chris and Hannah and I discussing the difference between craft and art. And I'm looking forward to sharing some artwork with you today. So without further ado, I'm going to kick over to my PowerPoint and talk about a little bit what's going on in the gallery, and then we'll get right to Chris. So if you don't know, on our website, the little hamburger they call here, click this and you can find our Zoom buttons every single week. They're always posted up there, usually on Tuesday, unless I forget. But you can always send me a note if you didn't receive it. And our newsletter system, we use MailChimp. It's a little finicky here and there. So if you don't hear anything, just call me. Every Saturday we do these Zooms. I'm going to continue doing them, and they're a lot of fun to reach out. If you have any ideas for them, let me know, because we have a way of expressing and sharing with the world. And then these are recorded on YouTube forever, which is really great. They're gearing up. We just updated the website with the Habitat Glass Tour itinerary. So if you're thinking about taking a trip to Europe on a cruise ship, going from port to port, visiting studios, artists, institutions, and people that are like-minded, there's still some room on the trip. Not much, but a couple slots left. It's incredible. I want to go really bad. So we're gearing up for Glass 52 already, which is crazy. The weekend is May 1st through the 5th of this year. We start off with the Artist Gala. It's going to be an incredible event. Invitations have gone out to all the clients. If you didn't get one, it should be arriving soon. If you don't receive one, let me know. Or you can go to glass52.com. It's just posted there. The cost for the weekend is, I think, $329 per couple. A lot of people told us we should raise the price up to $1,000, but it's not about that. It's just about getting people to come in and see the glass and see the artwork. So just be part of the history of Studio Glass and come see the Glass International, be part of our VIP weekend. It's a lot of fun. There's so many things planned. We have Richard Jolly doing a demo. We have John Miller doing a demo. We're going to be watching you keep seeing on social media, Paul Stankert's new documentary. We're going to stream that at the Flint Museum of Art. All the artists will be there, and you should be too. It's the Flint. We're doing Stephanie Trencher's first ever glass class too. We have limited space, I think like 10 slots. So make sure you sign up for that. And there's John Miller. He's going to be cooking for us with glass, which is kind of fun. So, oh yeah, then Richard Jolly I mentioned is he just signed up to the demonstration at Axiom across the street. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So here we go, NGG. This is March, but the year's flying by already. I think it was just January a second ago. And it is great to have Chris join us today to talk about his life, work, and career. And I'm really excited to hear about more in depth than yesterday about why he got into glass and what he's doing and his message, which is very important for the NGG. So I'm going to stop sharing and Chris, say hi to everybody.
Hi everyone, how you all doing? And thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my Zoom call.
That's fantastic. Well, go ahead and take over the screen, Chris, and then we can learn a little more about you. So I met Chris at the GAS conference. I was walking around by the Detroit Institute of Arts, and I bumped into Jeffrey Boughton. He introduced me to Chris, and then we hit it off from there and I learned so much about him. We talked about NGG, and I instantly invited him. So this is what's great about this community. You bump into people, you learn about them, and then you become not only friends but partners in business. So I'm honored to have you today, Chris, and please go ahead.
Yeah, brilliant. Um, so obviously, I'm going to dedicate this to George Floyd. What happened back in 2020 didn't just make the world stand up and take account, but it made glass also take account of what had happened and what had been doing um, to make black people obvious. So I've called it raising the colour bar. Now it could be just a colour bar as in a piece of glass, or it could be raising the colour bar as we see um, the atrocities that have happened. But I'll let this quick video tell you a little bit about myself. Hopefully you can hear it.
Chris, you need to share the audio again. It's not working. So if you click the
Okay,
audio, share the audio button, it might um, let
let's
everybody hear
find
what's
it.
going on.
Whereabouts is that? Is
You
it?
you found it yesterday, or
Yeah, we found it yesterday.
if not, I have this video queued up too. I can always play it for you.
Okay, I'm just trying to find it now. No. Mm, yeah, sound. Here we go. Sorry about this.
Perfect.
Hopefully you can hear that now.
We got to switch to the next slide. I think you're on the slide before, and then it will go back to the video.
Not working.
Nope, we're still on the same raising the color bar slide, the first slide.
Okay.
We need to get to
Now,
the next one. Oh, looks
okay.
like we're not moving at all. Try sharing again. If not, I could do it from my end. There you go. Okay, we're seeing the full screen now. Kick over to the video slide.
Hopefully this time we'll.
You're there. Good job. All right.
My name's Chris Day, and I've been glass blowing for about 5 years now.
Sound okay?
When I
A little
started
bit louder.
university, I didn't want to be structured. I'm a plumbing and heating engineer by career, and I have to follow a structure, I have to follow rules. But when I came across glass, my name's Chris Day,
Oh,
and I've been glass blowing for about 5 years now. When I started university, I didn't want to be structured. I'm a plumbing and heating engineer by career, and I have to follow a structure.
Can you turn it up a notch, Chris?
But when I came across
I'll
glass,
try my
it
best.
actually showed
It's on
me
the
that
right side of the
I couldn't
bar.
follow them rules because of how bad I was. You know, for me, the enjoyment was watching these things evolve and them actually telling me what I'm going to produce with this glass. Because obviously not having that technical experience to control it, it was out of control as well, but it actually came alive and it came very organic in shapes and forms. Trying to make decanters or glass goblets or bowls that were pristine and technically brilliant. You know, for me, the enjoyment was watching these things evolve and them actually telling me what I'm going to produce with this glass. I don't want to learn a lot of technical skills because perhaps that will take the enjoyment out of it. And that's what I've done for 5 years, is that I've blown and I've just enjoyed it, and I've not grasped a lot of technical ability because I don't want to. I want the glass to be in control as much as what I am. I'm always talking about slavery, and I'm also talking about my own identity as well, being mixed race. I don't quite fit the criteria of a master glass.
All right, Chris, I guess we'll just move on. Good stuff there. I love
Okay,
that
yeah.
video.
Brilliant. So this is where it all started for me. Back when I was 48 at the time, and my wife says you've got to go to university, and I didn't realize at the time I was dyslexic. But I knew that I didn't want to go because I knew I'd have to start reading and writing and doing all the things that I knew were going to be a barrier to me. And as soon as I got there was this place called a hot shop, which I'd never ever had I'd never even seen or had the ability to actually go into one. And to be honest, it scared me to death. So I stayed away from it, and I just carried on doing ceramic work, learning how to throw pottery. I thought, well, I can get myself a potter's wheel, and I can get myself a kiln, and I can do it from a garage. But all of a sudden, I had to start learning about historical facts that had happened. This was my way of learning what I'd not been taught. And as soon as I started learning about Emmett Tills and George Stinneys and lynching and segregation, although I knew outlines of it, I didn't realize how brutal it was. These aspects had been hidden from society and hidden from the books. Although they were in the books, I wasn't going to read them, and nobody was going to teach me. Also, I found when I was studying is that I wanted this community. I wanted to find other Black artists. So I was Googling. And as I'm Googling, I'm looking for people of color that are doing glass. Obviously, in the UK, there's hardly any. So you go to the search engines, and this is what I found when I Googled. It was just black glass. There was absolutely no artist there whatsoever. And then you talk to the tutors and say, do you know any people of color that are doing glass blowing? And they'd perhaps, tell you about somebody that did it 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but nobody came to terms to them that they could tell me.
Hmm.
Recently, I've done the same search, put black glass artists, and there's a good friend there, Jason McDonald, and there's myself. This is what the algorithms. What happens is when people get noted, is that it helps that search engine find people. So the what's happened to me is it's helped other people as well along to get noticed. But being noticed is one thing, but being told about somebody is totally a different thing. So when I was asking my lecturers about artists of color that are doing glass, is that they couldn't tell me anybody. They were telling me about white people perhaps doing ceramics. I had to do my own searching. And it was a shame that you're in an establishment that we shouldn't have a catalogue of all these names that they can pull from. And there's me on a computer scrolling through trying to find somebody, but I did. I found Cara Walker, not a glass artist, but has used glass in the past, but does these very silhouette illustrations, bit explicit, talking about what had happened during segregation, slavery, and the civil rights, and also the Civil War. But when I looked at her pictures, I thought, well, I want to start telling stories, but I don't want to be as explicit as her because I don't want to scare people away. And then I came over Fred Wilson, and this was my savior. When I seen his work, it was the way I wanted to interact with people and start the discussion about racism. The way he did and interacted with the audience very subtly, but at the same time making a stance of what had happened. And the stance he was making was trying to create pieces of work that were telling a story. The way that Black people, Black Africans have been humanized to be made fun of. And he put this into a piece of work. And this piece of work was Drip Drop Pop. And this was the first piece of work I ever seen that I thought, wow. And it made me laugh. And that was the great thing, is when I seen it, it made me smile. I didn't even know what the story was about. I didn't know what the googly eyes represented until I read it. Obviously, being dyslexic, I was always looking at pictures, but it made me stop. And that was the first thing, is that the work made me stop. Whereas if I was looking through a book of images, I would just be flicking the pages. But this one, it brought me to notice. And I'm so glad I did. And I'm so glad he produced this work. Though the googly eyes obviously representing how the caricatures of Black people have been represented or misrepresented. Also, while I was at university, I wasn't just looking at books and images. I was listening to things. And I came across Billie Holiday. And it's strange that you hear these recordings and you think that that's the first time you've heard it, but it's not even the first. So UB40 did a rendition of Strange Fruit, which I grew up with in the 1980s. And I loved the tune, but I wasn't listening to the words. But then with this old head on at university, is that I listened to the words and the melody was haunting. But then when you read the words, it's actually telling you what Strange Fruit is all about. And this is what Strange Fruit is. This is what that recording was trying to tell people. And it was banned. It was banned off the airwaves. We got the civil rights movement just starting to take course, and it was part of their logo. They had it on there, but everybody was banning it. And when you listen to it, it's all the words are telling exactly what is in this image. But the scary thing is that you've got a girl here looking at this person, and if it was a dog that was hung up, she'd be crying and telling her parents or whoever's around her, get it down. But this is a human body, and she's just smirking at it as if she's at a fun fair. And these are the images that really hit my heart, is that I've got to tell this story. I've got to say how bad this lynching was, because we think lynching was just for men. So I produced this strange fruit. This is my strange fruit. And it's quite disturbing, and it's quite beautiful at the same time. When people look at this, when it first came out, they was turning their heads away, but not at the first glance, but only when they read the artist's statement of what it was about. They didn't want to engage. And honestly, you know, it just it scares me now. But what I wanted to try and do was I wanted to bring people in to view this and get them feelings and them emotions, negative or positive. I wanted people to interact with this lynching. And I tried to create it as if it was a butcher's shop window and these were just pieces of meat hanging to be sold. But these pieces of meat were actually the flesh and the bodies of black people. Also, I found out about Emmett Till. And I say found out. It's a shame that the educational system in England doesn't even tell you anything about Emmett Till. And I was ashamed at first that all my life at 48, I've only just found out this story about Emmett Till. And yet again, as soon as I found out what had happened to him brutally, just because of the color of his skin, is that I wanted to produce a piece of work dedicated to him. And it was this image that actually haunted me. Obviously, the images of what they actually did to Emmett Till were disturbing enough. But when you see a mother grieving for a son, that's what hit my heart. And that's what I wanted to tell people about, is how brave this woman was to actually have an open casket to show the world what these people had done to her son. And this is what they'd done. You know, this is a 14-year-old boy, and he allegedly wolf whistled at a girl, a lady in a shop. And if he had a wolf whistled, so what? But in that time, this is what would have happened, or what did happen. So I created this piece of work. I gave it the title, Emmett Till. I didn't want to hide it. I wanted to show and tell his story. Luckily enough, the V&A have actually brought this and it's going to be on display next year. But people ask me, what's the proudest or the best piece of work that you've ever created? And I think all the works have got merit. And I perhaps would say Emmett Till. And not because it's in the V&A, but because it's now in an establishment that would never have ever had a piece of work dedicated to Emmett Till. You know, I'm not in the V&A. Emmett Till is in the V&A. And he's now being told in an institute that would have never been able to tell his story. How could you tell a story? I don't even know how you'd even begin. But glass has made me able to be able to tell his story. Another story I found out, and it's horrific what people did. 14-year-old boy allegedly raped 2 girls. Allegedly, didn't even do it. So instead of imprisoning him and rehabilitating him, they decided to put him on the electric chair. For me, trying to get some of these emotions out, and I think all this work, that's what it is about, is getting them emotions out. Remember, I didn't have an audience. George Floyd hadn't happened. We had no Black Lives Matter as such. I had no way of actually discussing these with an audience because the audience were turning their heads. George Floyd made this possible. But also, I still had to get it out of my system myself. So the first picture that you can see looks like a H shape. That's supposed to be the electric chair. And the piece next to it is like, I suppose it could be Emmett Till sprung up. But this was my way of getting it out and trying to start to make sense of what I'm going to create. And this is what I made. One size fits all. I titled it One Size Fits All because the electric chair was created to electrocute adults, not children. But obviously they made this so one size does fit all. Doesn't matter how tall or big you are. And then we come to token gesture. And this is where I start engaging and playing a bit with the materials that I've got. So the manila, and this is where my second job comes in as a plumbing and heating engineer. I didn't even know that these manillas were used as a token to purchase Africans to be traded as slaves. So this is how much I didn't know. But also what was great to find out that these manillas, the copper, as I use in my industry as a plumbing and heating engineer, was used to cast these to be able to use as a currency. So I thought, isn't it brilliant that there's me using it to produce a system where water can go through, and there's back in the day they're using it as a currency, the same material. So it was great to find out that the materials that I'm used to are actually materials I can tell that story. So somebody went diving one day and they found one of these manillas on the shipwreck and they brought it up to the world. And then they gave it to me 20 years after they'd been onto that shipwreck. So this manila had been there during the slave trade, and then somebody's found it, and then somehow it's found me. And this lady gave me one, and I got one 3D printed. So this was the start of the 3D printing. And then I had to cover them in a copper sulfate coating because I wanted to try and reproduce what had been produced then. But these are aluminium. So obviously being a plumber, I'm using my blowtorch to try and patinate these to make them look old. And this is what I created. So the one in the middle is the real one, and the two by the side are the pretend ones. But I managed to replicate them and do something where I could tell the story. And the story of the manillas are depicted in these bronzes. You know, they've been used for centuries as a way of showing a social status and wealth. So it wasn't as if they were just produced to buy slaves. They were part of African heritage anyway. But also in this piece of work called Token Jester is that I found out other stories. So the Zong massacre, another mass killing of 130 people thrown overboard because they thought they were running out of water. So they thought, well, we'll claim on the insurance when we get back. We'll throw 130 over and it's easy money. But the Zong changed the way that the insurers would now insure these slave traders. So that one gesture of what they'd done actually turned the whole slave trade on its head. So as you can see in the picture, there's this little shape of a window that's got the bars across it, and I put that into the piece of work, so you can see where I've blown, and I've put that same piece that I'd seen, and that's what it is. It's a catalogue of images that are in my head, and when I produce these, it comes out. I don't mean for them to come out, and I don't draw what I'm going to do. I draw with the copper as if somebody's going to draw on a piece of paper. But like I say, these images are stored in my head. And it's only after reflecting and looking at things that I've seen in the past is that, wow, that's where that came from. Sometimes I look and I think, how have I created that? But obviously, it's through reflection of what I have seen. Under the influence, I love this. I love the story and the engagement which I had with Harewood House. So Hannah Obi, she phoned me up as I'm traveling down to London one day. And yet again, I didn't know anything about this. Is that she says, we'd love you to do an exhibition at Harewood House. Didn't know anything about Harewood House. And she says, Harewood House was derived from the first Baron, Edwin Lascelles, who had plantations in the West Indies, and all the wealth was acquired through slavery. But we want you to tell the story. You know, the Earl David and Diana, who's the lady of the house, says, look, we're trying to rebalance what has happened in the past. So we want to tell this story. And the story was that they found 28 bottles in the cellars produced during the slave trade. And these bottles went up for auction. They initially valued at £800 per bottle, but I think they went for like £8,000 a bottle. And all the wealth that was acquired during the slave trade was then given out when they'd sold these at auction back into society through charities. So they gave it all away because they didn't want anything to do with it. But what they did want to do was to be able to tell that story, and that's why they got hold of me to have an exhibition. So yet again, I'm still learning. I'm learning about all these aspects that have happened in history, and I've seen pictures, as we all have, of how the American Africans had been put onto these plantations and had to work, and it's not just working like we have got 9 to 5 jobs. It's working from as soon as the sun rises until the sun sets, and even going into the night time, perhaps with one day off, which would have been the Sunday. Like I say, I'm very image based. And when I came over this picture, you can see the colours that are in the Turner painting, exactly the same colours which I've used in the bottle of the Under the Influence. Yeah, again, I didn't know why I was using these colours. I just knew that I wanted to. I'm not a person that will do loads of drawings and be explicit of what I'm going to create. I really like to play and be fluid, similar to what my glass is. But the hardest thing for me to actually do was create these bottles, tell a story of what had happened, and then give him this human element. Thankfully, one of my fellow students walked past the studio one day. So you can see where I've got the inspiration to put this braided top on, which is just rope, but I've made it look like braided hair. And I'm so thankful that she had her hair up in a bob that day and she was walking past, because I was struggling. It seems so simple now, but when you look at it, I was using copper tops, cork tops, any kind of top to try and it just didn't work. And this was the result. It ended up in the church. And this was another sticky situation that they wanted to face. Was they asked me, do you mind if we have it in the church? And I says, that's a brilliant place, because the church had its fingers in the pie too. They had ownership on slaves. But all this work has made it possible for me to start talking about myself in my work. I've told the stories of others, and it was very hard. And through my time at university, I wanted to produce a piece of work that was telling people about me being mixed race, but I never felt brave enough to be able to do that until the support mechanism comes in. And that's not just going to university. It's the cleaner that comes and helps you and says, oh, I love your work. It's the comments on Facebook and Instagram. It's everybody that says something good. And that confidence thought, well, I've told people about George Stinney's and Emmett Till's and Harewood House and all these other things in my work. I think it's time I tell people about what I've gone through being mixed race. So colorblind was the first time I dabbled my foot. So you can see we've got the rope and the incarceration of slavery, and we've got the colors of perhaps Jamaica, where my parents are from, or perhaps African colors. But you can see this cage where I'm encased in it too. I'm trying to break free. I'm trying to get away from what I'd hidden in the past and tell that story. But even with colorblind, I was still a bit shy to tell people, and it didn't really come out. But what did start to come out, same again with my pictures and the history that had gone with me, is that back in 1968, black and white people didn't mix. And if they did mix, they got subjected to the stigma from society of being there as a couple. And even my mum went through the same stigma. When she went to the hospital to have me, they made her take this wedding ring off. And it was these three, if you look at the picture, that looks like, I call them the nuns. And they stood over and told her that she had to do this because she was out of wedlock. And it's these aspects that I've had to grow up with, is that being denied any sense of history of myself, not having a black face in my family because I didn't know who my dad was that I hid all this away. And at 55, I started to come out. You know, my dad came over. He might have been on the the Empire Windrush? We don't know, but I am starting to find out facts about him, and through ancestry, I've started to link up with my ancestral family, which does reside from Jamaica and St Anne's, you know, and even close relations are just up the road in Wolverhampton, where I went to university, and in Birmingham. So I am starting to find out. But this is what my dad would have faced when he came over. You know, this was the sign of the times. You got no Irish, no blacks, and no dogs. That's how low society thought of people of colour and different diversities. Government at the time, same again in Wolverhampton, the Rivers of Blood speech, it just empowered this regime that the migrants weren't welcome and the immigrants weren't welcome. Same as what we see today. You know, this is the welcoming committee people had back in the 80s and the 70s. And this is what we've got today, the same welcoming committee, but just a different version. We still haven't learned aspects of the past to try and integrate and come together. We'd rather divide. I love this. I found this Loving Day. You know, my name's Day, and I thought this was just brilliant. But this, you know, same again. This couple, they changed history by being determined to stay together when society was saying no, you can't, and even the laws in America were saying no, you can't. You know, through out of brutality and out of determination, people can change the course of history. And you know, hats off to these. They just, you know, they embellish everything that I am about. So colorblind, it went on exhibitions, and for me, it's great to have exhibitions in London and everywhere. But the most powerful thing is the conversations that come from these. You know, I'm telling people about me being mixed race and the stigma that I had, and the amount of emails and messages that you have saying, "Oh, my brother or my father, you know, doesn't know who his dad is. Thank you so much for producing a piece of work that tells that story." Because people don't want to tell that story. People don't want to engage. But there's thousands of me's out there. Society made loads of us, unfortunately. I suppose the greatest thing, Emmett Till, but the greatest thing so far is this piece of work that I produced at Tacoma Glass Museum, or Museum of Glass, should I say. And this is where I really came out. This is where I really told the story of me being mixed race. And for the first time, being 55, I was proud of who I was. You know, this work, I look at it and I smile because I know the history behind it. And the person that I was isn't the person that stands before you now. You know, I would have never have told you any of this 6 years ago. Glasses gave me that vocabulary to be able to talk, not only about conversations of the past, the conversations of myself. And it's created a therapeutic release. Whereas now I'm happy to talk and I'm happy for people to engage. You know, this piece of work, they've got crowns. These are the Africans of the past. These are the kings and the queens. These are my kings and queens. Like my mum and dad, they should have been my king and queen and protected me, but they couldn't. Society wouldn't let them. So I had to create my own little tribe. But we're all judging. We're all the judge and we're all the jury. When we're on Facebook and we're just flicking away, not even giving it a glance sometimes. Just, you know, somebody's put all that heart and heartfelt into that content. But as us judges, we just flick past it straight away with no indication of what they're feeling. So the exhibition at the moment is in Two Temple Place. We've got Collect, a big craft council exhibition going on in London at the same time. And this building is just so exquisite. It is unbelievable. The woodwork, all produced during the slave trade, you know, and now you've got a piece of work that's in there that's telling a story or a historical side part of what was then to now. But for me, it's the conversations that this glass can have. You know, it's called the Glass Heart, the exhibition. And I love the picture of this young lady looking at this. You know, she's smiling. She looks like it has melted her heart looking at these people. And it's great to see. It's great to see people engaging with this work and the conversations. I was there only a couple of days ago, and everybody loves it, and especially when you start talking. And I think that's it, isn't it? I think this is what Martin Luther was saying. You know, our lives begin to end the day we remain silent about things that matter. And I think the more we can talk, the more we can have a conversation, the better the world will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, so much. That was great. I'm so happy you were able to join us today and share your story. I'll go ahead and kick you out of screen sharing. Worry not. Um, I learned a lot about all your pieces and the meaning behind each and every one. And it's so great that you discovered glass. Thank you for taking the time to do it, my friend. It is, you're so needed in this world, and it's so incredibly uplifting to talk and have a dialogue about, the past and even the future and what is in your head as a collector, as a creator, and so many people who identify with what you're talking about. That's what art's about, finding those people who identify with your message and reaching them. Back you know, when I started in this career, there was beautiful things being created, and people loved looking at beautiful things, and people shall celebrate, and they still do that today. But I think elevating the medium is so important, and by creating artwork that creates this dialogue and pushes people out of their comfort zone and to realize the world is bigger than them. And all these things you do in your work, man, it's so great to have you in our family and join us today and have this dialogue. Um, Yeah, so thank you, man.
No,
It's great to have you.
no, it's been a pleasure, and that's it, isn't it? It is a family. You know, I can see Jeannie's here. You know, these are people that I've met at Pilchuck and along the way, Jeff, Hannah. You know, I've got June from England here. You know, these have become the family that I had been denied. Glass has gave me a new family. You know, being who I am. Oh, there's Jeff showing.
Jeffrey's
I hope
holding
you.
something hot. What you got there, buddy?
Yeah. So, you know,
Nope, it's
I've
June's.
got a new family that are supporting me, and not just supporting me, but supporting this conversation, and that's the most important thing. And I'm so happy that Habitat have come on board. You know, I've got Angel from Vessel Gallery in London, and it's like being in Dragon's Den. I had a great dragon that was looking after me, and now I've got another dragon. So I appreciate everything that Habitat and yourself are doing to support not me, but the conversation.
Well, we're
Because
happy to support you too, my friend. And the idea with NGG, it's a great way to expose people to this exact kind of thing. And um, as it continues, I'm hoping it does. Every conversation that we have is so enlightening and eye-opening, and I just really, really enjoy it, and I hope everybody here does too. Um, The available work by Chris Day is on our website. I placed it in the link. Should you be interested, we'd love to place some pieces. We have one of them that has serious interest and will probably be sold. And there's always a dialogue willing to have. I'd love to connect Chris with anybody too directly to have a dialogue about him and his work and what you're looking for.
Was it, was it even on the mark? Was it?
Never saw it.
Okay, so I'm gonna see. Judy, I think you're talking. I'm gonna go ahead and mute you. So, thank you all for joining me today. This was fantastic. This will be on YouTube if you're watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Hit that bell. Do everything that you do on YouTube. And we'll be back again next week and again next month for NGG for April. And I hope to see everybody here for our international in May. Be well, everybody.
Great to meet you, Chris.
Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.